that AI isn't what it's cracked up to be. You have to be very careful. And one of my, analysts we get often asked at the end of the year, what are your predictions for the next year? So one of my 2024 predictions was there's going to be some backlash against AI.
Welcome to the global experience. Get ready as we take you into the dynamic world of customer service and collections.
You will gain access to the secrets of success in the world of customer and employee experience through conversations with keynote speakers, industry mavericks, and CX and debt collections experts and influencers.
Let's get into it.
Sawubona, welcome, and hello. Today we're thrilled to welcome the founder of a tech analyst company, independent technology analyst, Jon Arnold. He's a thought leader, speaker, and podcast host of Watch the Space. He specializes in the strategic impacts of communications technologies on digital transformation. With expertise spanning AI, unified communications, and the future of work, Jon Arnold, how are you doing today?
Oh, just great. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. The joys of technology. Everyone who's watching is just experiencing us like we're in the same room. Little do they know we are, I don't know, fill in the blanks, how many thousands of kilometers apart. So I'm in dreary, rainy Toronto, and you're probably in sunny, hot Johannesburg.
I mean, it is winter at the moment, but I think we have such a mild winter this year. It's like upper 20s actually lower to mid 20 degrees Celsius, and that's our winter.
Yes, right.
I know it's a little bit different on your side, even though it's summer, but it's actually so crazy because in the coming months you're actually going to be in South Africa, in at the Tambo International Airport at a layover, but we won't even be able to see each other. It's kind of frustrating, despite us being so far away from each other geographically.
So this is as good as it's going to get for now. Yes. But yeah, happy to be here. First time, right?
First time,
First
but not the
time.
last time. Can you maybe just kick us off by sharing a little bit about your journey, and what led you to get into the world of unified comms and to become this independent technology analyst and thought leader that you are today?
Well, thanks. We'll definitely do the Reader's Digest version, but the first thing I'll tell you for anyone who wants to be a technology analyst, the first thing I should say is that you don't go to school to be an analyst. I've got an undergrad in psychology, an MBA in marketing, but that doesn't really get you into the world of analyst work. It tends to be something you kind of have to come through the industry in one capacity or another. And I got my start working for one of the analyst firms, Frost and Sullivan. I'm sure you guys know them very well. They've been around a long, long time. And I was lucky to just be at the right place, right time. I live in Canada, and they were opening a Canadian office, and they needed some help with people who had business experience to help build the practice. And so anyways, I got hired on to work there, not as an analyst, but more as someone to help build the organization, because I had run my own market research business for a long time prior. And anyways, I just kind of got thrown into the VoIP space. And this was around 2000. And this was just as VoIP, voice over internet protocol, something we all know today pretty much. But at the time, it was just the way AI is disruptive and revolutionary today. That's a bit like what VoIP was when it first came out, right around 2000, maybe a little before then. No one took it seriously initially, but it was clearly going to be the future. And it really did create a lot of disruption in the telecom space. And so I kind of got there at the right time. This is a big part. If you want to have a great career as an analyst, get in at the ground floor of a new technology. Don't jump into something that's been around for 50 years. So I happened to be at the right place at the right time and learned a lot about the tech, the players, the industry, the dynamics of the space. And then, yeah, you go from there. So back then, again, simpler times, I could just be busy enough as an analyst just following the VoIP space. There was enough going on. It was like a sole focus. And today that's kind of laughable. So over the years, you start other things pile on. So VoIP became part of unified communications, and then cloud came along. So as an analyst, the key is you got to kind of roll with things as they come. So once you learn VoIP, then you learn about UC, then you learn about cloud, and now it's AI, and it's the bigger picture of what we call digital transformation, right? Everything going from analog to digital. So over the years, you kind of grow this. It's very organic, but a kind of an expertise of how these things all work together. I'm not a technical person. I'm not an engineer. I didn't work for a telco, didn't build a network. I'm not a developer. But there's many ways to be an analyst. And I think that's an important takeaway from anyone listening out there. They come from all walks of life. Some are super technical. Some are more business oriented and marketing oriented. That's kind of more like what I am. And I eventually moved on from Frost to start my own independent analyst practice. And I've been doing that for almost 20 years now, a long time. And I'm doing it because it keeps working. So the beauty of being an independent, and there's only a small number of us out there, guys. It's a service business like a lot of the industry. It's not hardware. You don't need, in other words, entry costs are low, but exit costs are low too. So anyone can jump in. But if you're going to have any length of time as an independent analyst, you've got to have relationships. You have to be on top of the technologies. You got to be at the events. You got to build a profile. So like we're doing here, we're talking, I'm writing, I'm speaking. And so that's what thought leadership is about, right? It's sharing what you know, helping educate the market. And some people do that naturally. Some people don't. Some people don't want to share anything. You got to pay for it all, but you're not going to get very far as an analyst being like that. So that's part of the DNA that you have to have. And so here we are, right? So I've managed to stay in it. So the key is keep learning, right? As long as you can keep ahead of the space enough, you can educate, you can give back, then you'll build a following and eventually a client base. And once you become part of the industry, it's like a lot of things, right? People know you, so it's not everything is transactional. It's, we talk about what's going on in the industry, who's working where, what technologies are really real, what's happening in other markets, what's coming around the corner, all the stealth stuff that we get to hear about as analysts, but a lot of it we're not allowed to share publicly. So, yeah, bottom line is integrity and trust. Clients aren't going to tell you the good stuff unless they can trust you. You're not going to blab it all over the internet, right? That will make for a very short career for sure.
Yes. And it's definitely about working with people of the similar interests, and obviously you found a passion in it and you're very excited about it, should I say. But I want to ask, what would you say, moving like a little bit to UCaaS, what trends in AI, like you mentioned, and UCaaS are you most excited about right now? What have you heard? What have you spoken to other people about? I'm interested to know.
Well, sure. So the excitement that you'd look for in UCaaS would have to be about how are players going to compete long-term with Microsoft? Up till about 2 years ago, that wasn't the space. The excitement 2 years ago was more about there's a lot of companies chasing this industry and there's room for everybody. And so there are new entries coming in, new partnerships all the time. But especially coming out of pandemic when basically Microsoft gave Teams away for free, they kind of, I've got a beachhead in the market that's ahead of everybody else's, and it's because it's so ubiquitous, right? So they're so dominant now, and that's become very clear recently, as you guys would know. So if the space isn't as exciting as it was a couple of years ago, it's still growing, but not growing like it used to. So the excitement is going to come from who is going to come up with innovative ways of using UC to keep it growing. Because the risk of UC, and when I say UC, I really mean UCaaS now, because cloud has become the default, right? There's a lot of prem out there. The Avayas of the world will tell you that. But the growth, where everything is going, obviously, is cloud. So UCaaS is where all the growth is. Prem-based UC is where maybe the maintenance is, but eventually it will become cloud, right? So the possibilities for UC are really very broad because UC can get plugged into anything now. They just keep adding features, right? Zoom, Microsoft, Cisco, Avaya. There's like no end to the features they keep adding. It's really hard to follow. But, the risk is that because it's so widely used, it can very quickly become a commodity. And it is kind of on that path. So that's not very exciting, right? So the excitement will come from who's going to come up with cool ways to take those underlying capabilities that make UC so valuable and take it to the next level, right? In other words, initially UC was just about having one platform you could do a whole bunch of things in: voice, video, text, file sharing, conferencing, right? One place, one screen, one interface. That's a step forward, right? But now that everybody can do that, now you have all the AI layered in there, and now you have the meeting summary notes, the transcriptions, right? All the Gen AI can write up your email follow-ups. It can organize your meeting schedules. That's pretty good, right? So that's evolution. But there's like the sky's the limit what you can do. Right now we're creating avatars for ourselves. So the excitement is where's the innovative things that go beyond just the day-to-day communication, because now what's happening is things like knowledge management are becoming more important in organizations, which goes beyond what UC was originally designed to do. But because so much of our conversations and interactions happen on UC, I used the term digital transformation before, right? It's all digital, right? All our conversations, all of our texts, and even our facial interactions, our expressions, they're all captured and they're all being digitized. So the AI folks are looking to mine all of that and pick up things like sentiment, right? And use that to kind of capture new forms of knowledge from the organization. So UC is now becoming more of a vehicle for supporting things like knowledge management, and this takes it way beyond just communications and meetings, right? So that's kind of where it's going. So that's what I say about the excitement. The innovation is AI is really the driver to say, okay, how do we take UC to the next level? We're getting into areas like, immersive collaboration, right, in virtual meeting spaces, and I mentioned like the avatars and things like, we're going to have, I guarantee you'll see it within the next year or two, digital twins will become a thing, right, where you can attend multiple meetings at the same time. Just send your avatars out. They each will have a different persona, variation of what you look like or whatever you want it to look like, and it will go to those meetings remotely on your behalf, take the notes, get the summaries, feed it back to you. Before you know it, we won't be doing anything. It'll be my bot will talk to your bot, and just let me know. That's
Yeah, we'll do next steps then. John, two things that I want to touch on. The first one is out of just curiosity, as you as a technology analyst, someone who's at the forefront of all the feature announcements and technology changes. There was an announcement yesterday by Zoom that they're going to be launching Zoom Docs. I think it was yesterday. And for those, if we will post this podcast probably about a week or two later, so it'll probably be 2 weeks old news by then. But does that speak to Zoom's desire to compete with the Microsoft and Google of the world and to start challenging their monopolies?
Well, absolutely. Zoom. I've long said that UC was the pandemic. I know we're going back a few years, but the pandemic was the best thing that could have happened to UC because it was the right tool at the right place at the right time when people had to work remotely and in distributed workforces. We couldn't have done what we did if we didn't have tools like UC. And because we were stuck at home with no interaction with face-to-face, all of a sudden, video again became the it thing, because with video we could have that ongoing interaction, and Zoom just happened to do it better than anybody else. So they were like the prime beneficiary of the pandemic, and that kind of catapulted them into the major leagues, right? Because Zoom had been around like 10 years. They were not a new company, but they just figured out a great user experience and kind of read the tea leaves probably a little better than everybody else, and they've built on that. And so now, because they are really, most people would consider them head to head on par with, Cisco WebEx and Teams and Avaya and anyone else you want to throw in there, Mitel. There's all the leading UCaaS vendors and then the cloud players like Ring and 8x8 and Vonage. They've all been at it. They all do a very good job, but Zoom has had a lot of success. And the key to their success, not that we're trying to put them on a pedestal, but Zoom is a very R&D first company, and they really value, they have a real strong culture of innovation. And so they graduated beyond UC. They launched Phone a few years ago. They got 4 million take-ups very quickly. And now they've added all these AI features, and now they have, their version of Copilot, to do all the AI virtual assistant stuff. They've launched email. So basically they've gone head to head with everything that Microsoft can do, and they are probably the one to follow for, say, what are the next 20 features we're going to see here? It'll probably be coming from Zoom. So anything they add that's new, like Docs, yes, puts them more and more squarely into the Microsoft and the Google Meet environment, because Zoom is not what I would consider a big tech player like all these other guys are. And if Amazon and Google, Microsoft, they'll go where they want to go, right? No one can really stop them. So if Google decides this is going to be a priority market for us, they will find a way, because they're just, they know the value of the enterprise play. And so Zoom, Google, Zoom, they both have two O's in their names. That doesn't help matters, but they just can keep adding those features, and they're going to try to make their platform as equivalent as anybody else's, and say, you know what, if you want it all in one place, we can do it just as good as they can. So that's kind of where they're going. So they're building on their successes. The only real setback or flop or bad move they've made was they tried to acquire Five9 a few years ago to get into contact center, right? That's a whole other story. Didn't work out. So they have since, again, they've built their own. And frankly, everything they've done, aside from Five9 mishaps, everything they've done has worked. They've had success. So if they want to go into Docs, they'll probably hold their own pretty well. They really, it's Eric Wan, the culture he's created there. Again, let's stop. We got to talk about other companies too. But Zoom is doing a great job. So they've earned it, and they're right there with everybody else, and will continue to be.
Yeah, John. Yeah, John. So maybe that pivots to the next thing. Is there's so much technology out there at the moment. There is 101 million CCaaS vendors, all doing very similar things, all with different USPs, different price points, different features, but accomplishing the same goal, right? Very similar in the UCaaS side. How can we, as a consumer or a business that's looking to implement that technology, get through the noise of this AI and technology to choose a technology that actually makes a difference to our business? It's a very loaded question. What would you say is the first step?
I'd focus on the vendors who talk as little as possible about AI. It's a little bit like VoIP. VoIP is a word terms consumers don't understand. If you just call it better telephony, they get that. They know what telephony is, but they don't understand, and they don't need to know what VoIP is. AI is the same. We're not data scientists, right? We're not. None of us really understand what AI actually is or does. That's why people like me are in the industry, to help explain it or, guide people along. And so the more vendors talk about AI, the more wary you need to be, because they're focusing more on the technology rather than, again, I'm a marketing business guy. Let's talk about business problems. Let's talk about the challenges you're facing in your business, and you work backwards from there. What are you trying to do? So contact center is a great example. Customer satisfaction sucks. Agent turnover is high. The cost of running a contact center is out of control. IVR is a terrible alternative to talking to agents. You can go on and on and on about all the problems. And at the root of it is they tend to be locked into legacy premise-based technologies that really can't adapt to the way things are evolving, right? So, same thing with like PBX. Those phone systems are like, fantastic. They're the best ever invented for what they were intended to do. Just like legacy contact centers are very good at what they were built to do, but today's market is it's much more tech centric, and so the contact centers have a lot of catch up to do. So their challenge is, how do we close what I call the kind of customer gap quickly? So in other words, customer expectations are up here, their capabilities are down here because they haven't invested in the technologies for all kinds of reasons. Because as consumers, right, the buyer demographic is getting younger, right? They're more your generation than mine. They're tech savvy, they're digital first, they're mobile first. It's not going to cut it for them to sit on hold for 5 minutes, not even knowing if they're going to talk to someone. They need real-time options. So with that technology, they can't get there. They need newer tech. So AI is attractive because it allows them to solve these problems in a hurry. If you can deploy it and get it going and working and all that stuff. That's a big if, by the way. But it's a solution. It's a bridge. It's a path that is yes, I can do that. That'll solve my problem faster and better than anything I can do right now. And because legacy stuff changes so slowly, it'll take years for them to move off their existing systems, find new ones. They don't have the luxury of time for that. So AI offers that. It's a bit of a silver bullet, though. They say, oh, good, we're doing AI, problem solved. Doesn't work like that. So the vendors that only talk AI are going to kind of, they're going to blow them away, and they'll be so impressed. Oh, we have AI. These guys have AI. Done. Well, no, because for the vendors, anything you call AI, it has high perceived value. They can charge a premium for that because you're so desperate for help, you'll buy anything, right? When it's a supply-demand thing, right? Not that they're taking advantage and ripping off customers. Some could be. I'm not saying that they are, but they're in that position, right? We have the solution, but, you got to buy it from us. We'll set the price type of thing. Well, the buyers aren't that savvy yet. So it's going to take a little bit of time until they kind of can have a level set conversation between, well, I know a bit about this stuff too. So it's not like I'm in kindergarten here. So that will change in time. But the vendors who talk more about, again, focus on the problems, I can tell you how AI will solve it, but let me just say, if we have this platform running in here, wouldn't all of these features be really good to have a virtual assistant, that could take those IVR calls but handle them in a more intelligent way so your agents aren't handling all these routine calls, right? Give them better tools. Give them one agent
Focuses on the
desktop.
outcome.
Yeah, outcomes, right? And processes are big too. Because another thing too is AI can solve a lot of problems. So I call it, from the front of the house, back of the house stuff. Customer facing, yes, they need a better experience. They need personalized service from agents. And agents can't do that with legacy stuff very well. AI is great for that. But at the back end, yeah, all the processes and workflows that AI can automate. Now it's like, okay, if the customer's problem is solved, AI will automatically route this, the next steps to like purchasing or shipping or credit card department, update a credit card, provide a refund to an order, ship a product someplace else. That's all easily automated stuff. And so again, AI can solve those problems right away. That makes the contact center way more effective. And now it's not just an issue of the contact center manager has to do a better job. Their CEO is looking at them and saying, the worse this gets, the more my brand suffers. You're costing me money. We've got to find a better way. Now it's a top line CEO, C-suite problem. And so it's much bigger than just a contact center manager or supervisor, adding a few new tweaks of technology. They have to rethink everything because the stakes are so high right now.
John, on the topic on AI, I read an article the other day and I was dying to ask you for your opinion. As we know, like AI loves data. How do these suppliers ensure that all the client's information is secure? How do we make sure that nothing gets leaked? Because it seems like every second company has AI somewhere on their website or in the name. So I was interested to hear your opinion.
Yeah, the reality is nothing is leak proof. And the reality is that most problems that come up around this are human error, right? They're not really the technology itself. So, the CrowdStrike thing that happened recently that, paralyzed half the world and the airlines and hotels and you name it, that wasn't even a data breach. That was just, the way that their platform handled upgrades, right? That every endpoint had to be upgraded and like, well, that doesn't make any sense, but that's how it worked. So that's got to be rethought. Every vendor will, they'll have their statements about transparency and ethics and responsible AI for good, all that stuff, and it's needed. And I think for any business that's evaluating these technologies, they need a little bit deeper dive. Like a lot of the vendors now will have compliance officers or privacy officers. Those people need to be in the conversations with the buyers to say, this is how we handle data. This is how we respect your privacy. We do not train our language models on your customers' data, or if we're want to use customer data, yes, we have explicit, processes to secure their permission first. There's so many things. It's if you understand the value of privacy and the value of the data that defines that privacy, then you've got to say that's really important to protect. And so not only do they have to say, we respect all of that, and our platform has different layers of security and whatever you want to call it up and down the stack. You have to be able to show that so they understand, okay, there are checks and balances in here, that the data just won't be freely scraped from any place. And geez, now are my competitors going to be getting this data? There's different layers like privacy and security. This is a whole other podcast, but privacy is one thing, security is something else. They're different, but they're very related topics. So when we talk about cybersec, that's like fundamental for everything now with the cloud and AI. But privacy is kind of like, another branch of the tree that has its own requirements and kind of rules and regs. And behind all of this, of course, like where you guys are, the regulations, right? So the EU, they had their AI Act passed earlier this year. That's a big deal. And it's, as you know, right, the violations can get very expensive for the vendors because they can impose penalties that are based on percentages of revenues. So when you're talking about Google and Microsoft, that can be a pretty big number. So it's a deterrent, right, to, again, respect those requirements. The U.S. doesn't have anything like that. You guys probably are closer to the EU model than the U.S. model where you are. You can tell me more about that. But, I'm just saying there is a need for regulation that kind of applies to everybody. But one of the challenges with AI is because it's such a wild west and it's kind of driven by Silicon Valley kind of mentality that's, break things, move quickly, disrupt, all of that. They're not fans of regulation, right? They want to be able to innovate any way they see fit. So there is that existential balance between innovation and regulation, right? Finding the best of both. So when you get into that security privacy stuff, companies they value efficiency and cost effectiveness over, oh, do we really have to be so careful with all this data, right? There are those issues where some companies it's more important for the bottom line, where are they really incented to behave well as opposed to not? So those are bigger picture questions, and we're all going through that. No one has the answers, but we all kind of know in our heads what are the things we should be doing. But whether it actually happens is another question. But we're all in it, right? We're all consumers. We all know what it means to have your privacy, disrespected or stolen or invaded or abused, whatever. And once you lose it, it's hard to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the big question that's going to be coming, what we're going to see more and more, I mean, we see it in South Africa already. We're phoned by AI bots quite regularly. And there's no regulation in South Africa that says you can't, and that you even have to state that you are an AI bot that's calling, at the moment at least. That's going to be the pressing thing, is whether we disclose whether we're AI or not, going forward, in my opinion at least. But to pivot slightly, John, 5 rapid fire questions for you. We'd like them answered in one sentence, as short as possible.
As quick
Just
as possible.
just give them like that. And Natalie is going to
Yes.
give the honors.
So
Okay.
you are aware that there are 5 rapid fire questions that you are fully unprepared for. It's just a nice way to end the podcast and obviously start your day. Some high energy. Cool. So you're gonna jump straight in. You have to keep your eyes on the screen, no looking anywhere, no searching for
Yeah, no
things.
Googles. I mean, I can't
It's
use
all
my
on top of your
phone.
head.
No. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. Let's go. So, John, what was the last thing you Googled?
The last thing I
Do you
Googled,
remember? Or searched?
yeah, avocados.
Okay.
And you want
Where?
we'll need a separate conversation to tell you why, but
Yeah.
it goes to the
Okay.
privacy thing we just talked about. And I'm not going to say anything more. It's
Yes.
very creepy, actually.
Maybe offline.
Offline, yeah.
Okay. Where was the last place you went on vacation?
Vacation was we went to a town called Innisfil, which is about an hour and a half north of Toronto, to a friend's cottage for a week.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, which is your favorite Olympic sport? This is a very relevant
I'm not a
question.
big Olympic fan, but I go with the glamour one, the 100-meter race.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one. Okay. Would you rather prefer to speak every language in the world or be able to speak to animals?
Oh, animals for sure.
Now we know you're an animal lover. And what is your favorite thing about your job?
Um, I can go grocery shopping at 2 in the afternoon.
Good answer. That's the best.
That's when you know you're an adult. When that's what gets you excited.
Yeah.
Natalie and I feel that as well. That's brilliant.
I love that. Well answered. All of them, actually.
Yay!
Uh,
Awesome.
John,
Did
one
I
last
pass?
question for you.
Yes, you did.
You
We learned more about you as
exactly.
well in
Good.
5 seconds or maybe in a minute. Be realistic.
One last thing, John. And you can answer this in like, I don't know, a minute or so, I guess, but because it's such a loaded question. But what's your unpopular opinion about the technology space and how it's evolving?
Sure. That the AI isn't what it's cracked up to be. You have to be very careful. And one of my, analysts, we get often asked at the end of the year, what are your predictions for the next year? So one of my 2024 predictions was there's going to be some backlash against AI. So, I mean, it's everybody's go-to. We can't get enough of it. It's that kind of thing. But at the same time, as I say, the vendors they're in the charge. They can charge a premium for this. They're driving the bus. We have so little knowledge about it, and a lot of just unforeseen consequences. And we're seeing it with all kinds of, this Patagonia thing, it came up recently. There's just a lot of areas for misuse and misunderstanding of what AI is and does. And so I think you'll see more and more unforeseen consequences. And basically, as the lawsuits come more often and get bigger, and we as consumers start pushing back that AI is just becoming too intrusive, it's a bit of a reality check, let alone the ROI requirements of businesses to invest in it, because I think in a lot of cases it's questionable if they're really getting. So, as an unpopular opinion is, I'm not all in on AI. I'm very cautious about it. I love what it can do. But, we see enough and as analysts and say, you know what, there's a lot of checks and balances that aren't here that we have in other technology circles that have to be watched, because it's that, and it's tied to my other unpopular opinion is the growing dominance of big tech. That, we are so tied to Google, Amazon, all the cloud players, because they have the biggest clouds, they have all the data, they have really disproportionate market power, that long term, like when the telcos were broken up in '84 in the US as a monopoly, they're coming to a point where they're getting almost too big to regulate, and they have so much market power that we have very little way to counter that if decisions are made about, well, what data is going to be kept, what isn't, etc., what you're allowed to access or not. And when there are disputes, well, if they hold all the data, your recourse is very limited. So that growing power of big tech is always kind of an underlying concern. So that may not be a very popular opinion, even though I do hold shares in some of these companies, but that's a sideline. It's more like the power of big tech just keeps growing, and you have to be a little concerned about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. For everyone who's listened to this podcast and wants to know a little bit more, we will post the links to all John's socials in the show notes, so go have a look. Otherwise, go follow J. Arnold and Associates. You'll find websites. Otherwise, follow Jon Arnold on LinkedIn and listen to Watch the Space podcast. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. We learned a lot, and we can't wait to have you on for yet another season of technology in the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. This has been a lot of fun, guys, and thanks. We finally got this going, and can't wait to see it and share it and come back another time for sure.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you had as much fun as we did and gained valuable experience insights.
Let us know what you think. Connect with us on social media and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Stay inspired, stay customer-centric, and know that the world of customer experience and collections is within your reach, the global experience.